No one is watching you right now, and that is exactly when your future is being decided. Not when you're motivated, not when you're praised, but when you're alone, tired, unseen. The person you become is not built in public moments. It is built in silence, in small decisions you think don't matter. What you repeat in private becomes who you are in public. And if you don't take control of your silent habits, your life will be shaped by default. This audiobook will show you how the unseen work builds unstoppable power. Chapter 1. Your life is built when no one is clapping. No one is clapping for you right now. There is no applause, no encouragement, no spotlight. And most people think this moment doesn't matter. They think life is built in the loud moments, in promotions, in praise, in recognition. That belief is why most people stay average, because the truth is simple, brutal, uncomfortable. Your life is built when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when no one is checking, when no one would even notice if you quit. That is where identity is formed. Public moments reveal who you are. Private moments decide who you become. Read that again. Public moments reveal who you are. Private moments decide who you become. Most people wait for an audience to perform. They wait to be seen before they try. They wait for validation before effort. But the strongest people operate in reverse. They build in silence. They work in silence. They prepare in silence. And when the moment comes, the world thinks it happened overnight. It never does. Think about the athlete who dominates on game day. You see the performance. You don't see the early mornings, the lonely workouts, the repetitions done without praise. Think about the speaker who commands a room. You hear confidence. You don't hear the hundreds of silent rehearsals, the mistakes practiced alone, the doubt faced privately. The applause is the effect. The silence is the cause. But here's the problem. Silence exposes you. In silence, there's no pressure, no image to protect, no one to impress. That's when excuses feel logical. That's when quitting feels harmless. That's when comfort whispers, you can do it tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes never. This is where most lives quietly collapse, not through failure, but through neglect. Small neglect, daily neglect, private neglect. Skipping the workout because no one will know. Avoiding the hard conversation because no one is pushing you. Choosing distraction because effort feels lonely. No one claps for discipline. No one cheers consistency. No one celebrates preparation. That's why few people commit to it. But if you want to change your life, you must reframe silence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is construction. Silence is where habits are forged, standards are tested, character is revealed. Ask yourself this question, and don't rush it. Who are you when no one is watching? Not who you say you are, not who you plan to be, who you consistently are, because that person is winning the vote. Every private action is a vote for your future identity. Every excuse is a vote. Every disciplined choice is a vote. You don't need a perfect day. You need a private standard. A standard that does not change based on mood. A standard that does not depend on praise. A standard that does not wait for motivation. Here is the behavioral shift. Stop asking, do I feel like it? Start asking, is this who I said I would be? That one question changes everything. When you wake up tired and choose discipline, no one claps. When you say no to distraction, no one cheers. When you practice when it's boring, no one notices. But something happens anyway. You begin to trust yourself, and self-trust is power. Confidence doesn't come from hype, it comes from evidence. Private evidence. Every time you keep a promise no one hears about, you strengthen your identity. Every time you act without recognition, you harden your character. This is how silent confidence is built. Not loud, not flashy, unshakable. Most people want results first, then they promise discipline. Strong people choose discipline first. Results follow quietly. This chapter is not about doing more. It's about doing what you already know without needing permission. No posting, no announcing, no waiting. Just execution. So here's your instruction. Pick one small habit you've been avoiding because it feels insignificant. Do it daily, in silence, for the next 30 days. Don't tell anyone, don't track it publicly, don't look for encouragement. Let the habit become normal. Let the effort become quiet. Let the discipline become automatic. Because the moment you stop needing applause, you become dangerous. And this is the core truth of this book. The person you become is not built in public. It is built in silence. And in the next chapter, we will dismantle the lie that keeps most people trapped at the starting line, the belief that motivation comes first. Because motivation is loud, but discipline is silent. And silence is where your future is being decided. Chapter 2. Motivation is loud. Discipline is silent. Most people are waiting. Waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel motivated. And while they wait, life moves on without them. Motivation is the most overrated force in self-improvement. It's loud, it's emotional, it makes promises it cannot keep. Motivation says, I'll start when I feel inspired. Discipline says, I start because this is who I am. That difference decides everything. Motivation depends on mood. Discipline depends on standards. Mood is unstable. Standards are fixed. That is why motivated people start fast and quit early, and disciplined people start slow and finish strong. Look at how motivation actually works. It shows up randomly, it fades quickly, and it disappears the moment things get uncomfortable, the moment the work feels boring, the moment progress feels invisible, the moment silence sets in. That's not a flaw, that's its nature. Motivation is a spark, discipline is a system, and sparks don't build fires without structure. Most people make the same mistake. They wait for motivation to arrive before they act. But motivation doesn't come before action. It comes after. Action creates motivation. Progress creates motivation. Momentum creates motivation. You don't feel motivated, then work. You work, then feel motivated. This is where most people get trapped. They sit still, hoping to feel different. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. But clarity comes from movement. Confidence comes from evidence. And evidence only comes from discipline. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You will not feel like doing the work most days. Not because you are broken, but because discipline was never supposed to feel good. Discipline feels neutral, sometimes boring, sometimes heavy, and that's exactly why it works. When you rely on motivation, you train yourself to obey feelings. When you rely on discipline, you train yourself to obey decisions. One creates inconsistency, the other creates identity. Ask yourself this honestly. How many times have you said, I'll start when I feel motivated? How many times did that motivation actually last? Motivation is loud at the beginning, quiet at the middle, gone at the hard part. Discipline doesn't announce itself. It doesn't care how you feel. It shows up anyway. And that is the skill you must build. Not excitement, not inspiration, reliability. Being the kind of person who does what they said they would do, especially when no one is watching, especially when nothing feels rewarding. Here is the shift you must make. Stop negotiating with your feelings. Feelings are temporary. Your future is not. Every time you negotiate, you lose authority over yourself. Every time you delay, you reinforce hesitation. Discipline is not harsh. It is protective. It protects you from excuses. It protects you from inconsistency. It protects you from becoming someone you don't respect. Here is a practical rule. Decide once. Execute daily. Do not redecide every morning. Do not debate every evening. Decisions drain energy. Standards conserve it. If your standard is clear, action becomes automatic. For example, I work out 4 times a week is a standard. I'll see how I feel today is a trap. I write every morning is a standard. I'll write when I'm inspired is an excuse dressed as creativity. Strong people eliminate daily choice. They remove friction. They remove debate. They remove emotion from execution. That's why discipline feels boring. And boring is powerful. Boring means repeatable. Repeatable means reliable. Reliable means unstoppable. You don't need more hype. You need fewer decisions. So here's your instruction. Pick one behavior you keep postponing. Set a non-negotiable schedule for it. Attach it to time, not mood. Then execute it even when it feels pointless, even when it feels dull, even when it feels slow. Especially then. Because discipline only forms when motivation is absent. This is how identity is rewritten. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. Not loudly, not dramatically, silently. And this brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is not shaped by how inspired you feel. It is shaped by what you repeat in silence. In the next chapter, we will expose how every small habit, no matter how insignificant it seems, is voting on your future every single day. Because nothing you do is neutral. And silence is keeping the score. Chapter 3. Your habits are voting on your future every day. Nothing you do is neutral. Every action you take is casting a vote. Every habit is submitting a ballot. Every repetition is choosing a future. Most people don't realize this. They think small actions don't matter. They think habits are harmless. They're wrong. Your habits are voting on your future every single day. One workout doesn't change your body. One missed workout doesn't destroy it. But repeated votes decide the outcome. That's how identity is formed. Quietly, gradually, relentlessly. You don't wake up one day disciplined. You don't suddenly become confident. You don't accidentally build a strong life. You vote your way there. Most people focus on outcomes, results, milestones. But outcomes are delayed. Habits are immediate. And what is repeated becomes automatic. Scrolling for just 5 minutes is a vote. Skipping preparation is a vote. Choosing comfort over effort is a vote. You don't feel the impact today. That's what makes it dangerous. Because habits compound in silence. Just like interest, just like decay. Think about this. No one ruins their life in one decision. They ruin it with thousands of small ones that felt insignificant. No one builds an extraordinary life in one breakthrough. They build it with thousands of boring choices done consistently. The future is not built through intensity. It is built through accumulation. And accumulation is invisible in the beginning. That's why people quit too early. They don't see results. They don't feel progress. But the vote has already been cast. The scale doesn't move until it does. The skill doesn't show until it does. The confidence doesn't appear until it does. Most people quit in the silent phase, right before the outcome flips. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are already voting, even if you're not trying to improve, even if you feel stuck, even if you feel lost. Inaction is a vote. Avoidance is a vote. Neglect is a vote. And the system never stops counting. Ask yourself this honestly. If your habits stayed exactly the same for the next 5 years, would you be proud of the person they create? That question removes all excuses. Because habits don't lie. They reveal priorities. Not what you say matters. What you repeat matters. People love to talk about goals, but goals don't shape your life. Systems do. Habits are systems you live inside every day. And most people are living inside systems they never consciously chose. They inherited them. They drifted into them. They tolerated them. That's why change feels so hard. You're not fighting a lack of motivation. You're fighting an established identity. Here's the shift you must make. Stop asking, is this good or bad? Start asking, what future does this vote for? Because some habits don't feel destructive. They just vote against your potential. Sleeping late once isn't failure, but repeated votes for avoidance create a lazy identity. Skipping reflection once isn't a problem, but repeated votes against awareness create confusion. Habits don't need to be extreme to be powerful. They just need to be consistent. That's why discipline happens in silence. No one celebrates the 10th repetition. No one applauds the boring day, but the system records it anyway. This is where you regain control. You don't need to change everything. You need to change the direction of the vote. One habit, one adjustment, one deliberate action. Because a single new habit casts a different vote. And once the direction changes, momentum follows. Here's your instruction. Audit your habits like a scoreboard. Write down what you do daily, not what you intend to do, what you actually do. Then ask one question for each habit. What future does this vote for? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that's clarity. Now choose one habit to remove, one habit to replace, and one habit to reinforce. Not dramatically, not aggressively. Quietly, daily. Because habits don't need motivation. They need repetition. And repetition is silent. This is how identity shifts without force. You don't fight your old self. You starve it. You feed the habits that support the person you want to become, and the rest fade naturally. That's how real change happens. No announcements, no pressure, no hype. Just quiet alignment. And this brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is not shaped by what you dream about. It is shaped by what you repeatedly vote for in silence. In the next chapter, we will confront the most dangerous enemy you face, an unmanaged mind. Because if you don't control your thoughts, they will control your habits. And silence will keep building something, whether you're paying attention or not.
Chapter 4. The mind you don't control will control you. Your mind is always working, even when you're not paying attention, especially when you're not paying attention. And if you don't control your mind, It will control you. Not gently, not fairly, automatically. Most people think their problem is discipline. It's not. Their problem is an unmanaged mind. A mind that defaults to fear. A mind that seeks comfort. A mind that avoids effort. Left alone, the mind does not choose growth. It chooses familiarity. That's why change feels so hard. Your mind is not designed to make you successful. It is designed to keep you safe. Safe from discomfort. Safe from uncertainty. Safe from effort. But safety and growth are not the same thing. And if you don't train your mind, it will sabotage every habit you try to build. Here's how it happens. You decide to change. The mind responds with doubt. You start a new habit. The mind looks for excuses. You feel resistance. The mind calls it intuition. This is not wisdom, it's conditioning. Your mind repeats what it has practiced. And most people have practiced distraction, avoidance, and self-talk that weakens them. Think about your internal dialogue, the voice you hear when things get hard, the voice that speaks when no one else is around. Is it disciplined or indulgent? Is it firm or negotiating? That voice is shaping your identity, and it speaks the loudest in silence. That's why silence is dangerous for an untrained mind. In silence, excuses sound reasonable. In silence, fear sounds logical. In silence, quitting feels justified. This is where most people lose the battle. Not because they lack ability, but because they believe every thought they have. Here is the rule you must adopt. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion deserves obedience. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. But most people treat them like orders. I'm tired becomes I should stop. I'm unsure becomes I'm not ready. This is hard becomes this isn't for me. That translation is learned, and it can be unlearned. Strong people don't have better thoughts. They have better filters. They choose which thoughts to engage, which thoughts to ignore, which thoughts to replace. This is mental discipline. And mental discipline happens in silence. When no one corrects you, when no one challenges you, when no one interrupts your internal story. Here's the shift you must make. Stop asking, is this thought true? Start asking, is this thought useful? Because many thoughts are true, but still destructive. Yes, you are tired, but stopping won't serve you. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but growth requires it. Yes, you feel fear, but fear doesn't decide your future. Utility matters more than accuracy. The mind can say anything. You choose what you act on. This is how you take control. Name the voice. When doubt appears, label it. This is resistance. This is fear. This is old programming. Naming creates distance. Distance creates control. Then replace the script. Not with positivity, with commands. I do this because I said I would. This is uncomfortable, and I proceed. I don't need to feel ready. Short, direct, non-negotiable. Your mind learns through repetition, the same way habits form, the same way identity forms. If you repeatedly obey weak thoughts, you reinforce weakness. If you repeatedly override them, you build authority. And authority over your mind is power. This is why people with talent fail. Their minds defeat them before effort has a chance. This is why average people win. They don't argue with their mind. They move anyway. You don't need to eliminate negative thoughts.
You need to stop obeying them. That's the difference. Here's your instruction. For the next 7 days, observe your internal dialogue. Don't judge it. Don't fix it immediately. Just notice. Notice what your mind says when effort is required. Notice the excuses. Notice the patterns. Then choose one phrase to interrupt it. One line you repeat every time resistance appears. Something simple, something firm. For example, this is part of the process. I act despite discomfort. Feelings don't decide. Repeat it daily, silently. This is mental training, and mental training shapes habits, and habits shape identity. Which brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is built in silence, in the thoughts you allow, in the excuses you challenge, in the commands you repeat to yourself when no one is listening. In the next chapter, we will expose the most socially acceptable enemy of growth, comfort. Because comfort doesn't attack you, it sedates you. And silence is where it does the most damage.
Chapter 5. Comfort is the most dangerous addiction. Comfort doesn't feel dangerous. That's the problem. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It doesn't scare you. It soothes you. And slowly, quietly, it takes your edge. Most people think addiction looks dramatic, destructive, obvious. But comfort is subtle. It convinces you that good enough is safe. It whispers that there's no rush. It tells you tomorrow will be easier. Comfort never tells you to quit. It just tells you to wait. And waiting becomes a habit. Here's the truth most people avoid. Comfort is not rest. Comfort is avoidance disguised as care. Real rest restores you so you can return stronger. Comfort keeps you in place. That's why people stay stuck for years without realizing it. They're not failing, they're just too comfortable to grow. Comfort keeps you scrolling instead of studying. Comfort keeps you planning instead of executing. Comfort keeps you talking instead of doing. And because it doesn't hurt, you don't resist it. That's why comfort is the most dangerous addiction. It feels earned. It feels justified. It feels normal. But normal is where potential dies. Look around. Most people are not miserable. They're numb. Not unhappy enough to change. Not driven enough to grow. They live in the middle, and comfort loves the middle. Comfort avoids extremes, avoids pressure, avoids discomfort. But pressure is where strength is built. You don't grow when life is easy. You grow when resistance is present. That's not punishment, that's biology. Muscles grow under tension. Skills grow under strain. Confidence grows under challenge. Remove tension and growth stops. That's why comfort slowly erodes ambition. It replaces hunger with habit, drive with routine, vision with distraction. And it happens in silence. No one warns you. No one interrupts it. Comfort doesn't arrive as a decision. It arrives as a default. One skipped effort, one delayed task, one rationalized excuse. And over time, those choices become a lifestyle. Here's the shift you must make. Stop asking, is this comfortable? Start asking, is this expanding me? Because comfort is easy to justify. I worked hard, I deserve this. I'll start again tomorrow, just this once.
But growth doesn't respond to excuses. It responds to action. This doesn't mean you live exhausted. It means you live intentionally. Discomfort is not the enemy. Avoiding it is. Strong people don't seek pain. They stop running from it. They understand that short-term discomfort creates long-term freedom. Comfort does the opposite. Short-term ease, long-term regret. This is why discipline feels uncomfortable. It interrupts comfort. It removes options. It removes softness. It removes escape. And that's why it works. Here's your instruction. Identify one area where comfort has slowed you down. Be specific. Is it your routine, your work ethic, your body, your conversations? Now introduce controlled discomfort. Not chaos, not burnout. Deliberate resistance. Wake up earlier than necessary. Sit with boredom instead of reaching for distraction. Finish tasks without rewarding yourself first. Train your nervous system to tolerate discomfort. Because tolerance builds capacity, and capacity builds confidence. This is not about being extreme, it's about being honest. Comfort has a cost, and you're already paying it. The question is whether you'll keep paying silently. This chapter matters because comfort thrives in private. No one sees you choose ease. No one sees you avoid effort. No one sees you settle. But silence records everything. Comfort shapes identity just like discipline does. Repeated comfort builds weakness. Repeated discomfort builds strength. And the person you become is the sum of those choices. Which brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is built in silence, in the moments you choose comfort or challenge, in the habits you protect or disrupt, in the resistance you avoid or embrace. In the next chapter, we will confront the stage where most people quit, not because it's hard, but because it's boring. Because boredom is not a signal to stop. It's the gateway to mastery.
Chapter 6. Boredom is the gatekeeper of greatness. Most people don't quit because something is hard. They quit because it's boring. The effort is manageable. The schedule is reasonable. The task is clear. But it's not exciting anymore. No adrenaline, no novelty, no rush. And boredom feels like failure. So they stop. This is one of the most misunderstood stages of growth. Boredom is not a sign that something isn't working. Boredom is a sign that it is. In the beginning, everything feels stimulating. New habits feel fresh. Progress feels visible. Then repetition takes over, and repetition feels dull. That dullness is where most people exit, right before mastery begins. Every meaningful skill passes through boredom. Athletes don't quit because training is impossible. They quit because it's repetitive. Writers don't stop because they can't write. They stop because writing feels ordinary. Students don't fail because learning is too complex. They fail because it's not entertaining. Boredom is the filter. It separates dabblers from builders. And silence is where boredom is loudest. No feedback, no reward, no sign you're improving. Just repetition. And repetition without applause feels pointless unless you understand what it's doing. Boredom means the basics are settling in. It means your nervous system is adapting. It means skill is being wired deeply. This is the phase where identity is built. Not the exciting beginning, not the visible result, the middle, the quiet middle. Most people confuse boredom with stagnation. They think, if this mattered, it would feel exciting.
That belief keeps them shallow. Depth is never exciting at first. Depth is repetitive. Depth is quiet. And depth is powerful. Here's the truth. If you quit when bored, you will never be exceptional at anything, because exceptionality requires tolerance for repetition. The best performers are not more talented, they are more tolerant. They can repeat without novelty. They can practice without praise. They can work without stimulation. That is a skill. And like all skills, it's trained. Boredom is not something to escape, it's something to outgrow. Here's the shift you must make. Stop asking, how do I stay motivated? Start asking, how do I stay consistent? Motivation hates boredom. Consistency thrives in it. This is where discipline becomes identity. When you do the work even when it feels average, even when it feels routine, even when it feels forgettable, those are the reps that count most, because they are the reps no one else is willing to do. Here's a hard truth. You don't get rewarded for the exciting days. You get rewarded for the boring ones. The days you almost skipped but didn't. The days nothing felt different, but you showed up anyway. Those days compound, quietly. This is why silence matters. No one is telling you you're improving. No one is validating your effort. But something is changing. Your tolerance is increasing. Your standards are solidifying. Your identity is stabilizing. This is how professionals are built. Professionals don't rely on excitement. They rely on systems. They show up because it's scheduled. They repeat because it's required. They continue because stopping isn't an option. Boredom becomes familiar. Familiar becomes comfortable. Comfortable becomes automatic. That's mastery. Here's your instruction. Choose one habit you've labeled as boring. Do not change it. Do not optimize it. Do not escape it. Commit to it for 30 days. Same time, same format, same expectation. Let boredom appear. Let resistance show up. And stay anyway. This is boredom training, and boredom training builds discipline, which builds identity, which builds the person you become. This chapter matters because boredom exposes commitment. Anyone can start when it's exciting. Few can stay when it's quiet. And the person you become is decided in that quiet. Which brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is built in silence, in the repetitions no one celebrates, in the boredom you endure, in the habits you keep when novelty fades. In the next chapter, we will destroy one of the biggest myths in self-improvement, that intensity is more important than consistency. Because intensity is impressive, but consistency is unstoppable.
Chapter 7. Consistency beats intensity every time. Intensity looks impressive. Long hours, big effort, extreme focus. It feels powerful. But intensity is unreliable. It burns hot, it fades fast, and it leaves nothing behind if it isn't repeated. Consistency doesn't look impressive. It looks ordinary, predictable, almost boring. And that's why it wins. Most people chase intensity because it feels productive. They want to do everything at once. They want fast results. So they go hard for a week, maybe 2. Then life interrupts, energy drops, motivation disappears, and the system collapses. Not because they didn't try hard enough, but because intensity cannot be sustained. Consistency can. Consistency is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. It just shows up. Every day, at the same time, with the same standard. That repetition is where real power lives. Think about this. One intense workout won't change your body. One intense study session won't build mastery.
One intense burst of discipline won't change your life, but small effort repeated daily will. Consistency compounds, and compounding is invisible at first. That's why people underestimate it. They don't see results immediately, so they assume it's not working. They abandon consistency for intensity again, and the cycle repeats. Here's the truth. Intensity feels like progress. Consistency creates progress. Intensity relies on emotion. Consistency relies on structure. Emotion fluctuates. Structure holds. That's why disciplined people build routines, not moods. They don't ask, how much can I do today? They ask, what can I repeat tomorrow? That question changes everything. Consistency removes pressure. You don't need perfect days. You need complete days. Complete means you showed up, even briefly, even imperfectly. A small action done daily beats a massive action done occasionally, every time. This is hard for people to accept because it bruises the ego. Intensity feeds the ego. Consistency ignores it. Intensity wants credit. Consistency wants results. And results don't care how dramatic the effort looked. They only respond to repetition. This is why silence matters again. No one praises consistency. No one applauds showing up for the 47th time, but the system records it. Your body records it. Your mind records it. Your identity records it. Consistency rewires self-trust. Every time you show up as planned, you send a signal, I can rely on myself. That signal builds confidence faster than any motivational speech. Inconsistency does the opposite. It teaches hesitation. It teaches doubt. It teaches self-betrayal. And that lesson is learned silently. Here's the shift you must make. Lower the intensity, raise the frequency. Stop asking how hard you can push. Start asking how long you can sustain. Your goal is not exhaustion. Your goal is continuity. Continuity creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates identity. This is how strong people are built, not through heroic effort, through reliable execution. Here's your instruction. Choose one area where you've been inconsistent because you aimed too high. Scale it down. Make it almost too easy. 10 minutes instead of an hour. 1 page instead of a chapter. 1 action instead of 10. Then do it every day. No exceptions. No catch-up days. No intensity spikes. Just presence. Consistency is a promise you keep repeatedly, and each time you keep it, you strengthen the person you are becoming. Missed days weaken identity. Kept days reinforce it. This chapter matters because consistency is invisible power. It doesn't impress others, it transforms you. And transformation never happens loudly. Which brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is built in silence, in the quiet decision to show up again, in the ordinary effort repeated daily, in the discipline no one notices but you. In the next chapter, we will confront a hard reality most people avoid. You are never standing still. You are always becoming something, and silence is deciding what that something is.
Chapter 8. You are always becoming something. There is no standing still. That is the illusion that keeps people stuck. You are not paused. You are not waiting. You are not neutral. You are always becoming something. Every day you either build strength or lose it. You either sharpen discipline or dull it. You either move forward or slide backward. There is no maintenance mode in life.
And most people don't fail because they choose the wrong direction. They fail because they believe they're not choosing at all. But inaction is a choice. Neglect is a choice. Drift is a choice. And drift always has a direction. Down. This is uncomfortable to hear because it removes excuses. You can't say, "I'm just taking a break," forever. You can't say, "I'll deal with it later," without cost. Later charges interest. What you don't train weakens. What you don't use decays. What you don't protect disappears. Skills fade. Confidence erodes. Discipline rusts. Silently. This is why people wake up one day and feel lost. They didn't suddenly lose themselves. They slowly abandoned themselves. One skipped effort at a time. One ignored responsibility at a time. One avoided discomfort at a time. No alarms, no warnings, just quiet decline. Here's the truth most people avoid. You don't need to destroy your life to lose it. You just need to stop building it. That's enough. That's why silence matters so much. No one sees drift happening. No one notices decay in real time. It looks like rest. It feels like relief. It sounds like, "I'll get back to it." But habits don't wait. They either compound or corrode. This applies to everything. Your body, your mind, your relationships, your standards. If you stop reinforcing them, they weaken. This is not punishment, it's reality. Growth requires input. Without input, decline is automatic. Here's the shift you must make. Stop asking, "Am I doing enough?" Start asking, "Am I reinforcing the person I want to be?" Because effort isn't the goal. Direction is. A small action in the right direction beats no action every time. But no action always moves you backward. Even comfort moves you backward if it's repeated. That's why this book keeps returning to the same idea. Silence is not empty. Silence is active. It's building something whether you're aware of it or not. That's why awareness is power. When you realize you're always becoming, urgency appears. Not panic, clarity. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop assuming you'll catch up later. You start protecting your habits. Because habits are the engine of becoming. And engines need fuel. Here's a hard but freeing truth. You don't need massive change to reverse decline. You need consistent reinforcement. One habit resumed. One standard restored. One boundary re-established. This is how people turn their life around quietly. No announcement, no dramatic reset. Just consistent rebuilding. Here's your instruction. Identify one area where you've been drifting. Not failing, drifting. Be honest. Is it your physical health, your focus, your discipline, your integrity with promises? Now choose one small reinforcing action. Something so simple you cannot justify skipping it. And do it daily. Not to improve quickly, but to stop decay. Because stopping decay is progress. Once decline stops, growth becomes possible again. This chapter matters because it removes the lie of neutrality. There is no neutral behavior, only reinforcing or eroding behavior. And silence is where erosion hides best. Which brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is built in silence, in what you reinforce daily, in what you allow to decay, in the habits you protect or abandon when no one is watching. In the next chapter, we will confront another dangerous illusion, that wanting to change is enough, because intention does not build identity. Repetition does. And silence is where repetition lives.
Chapter 9. Identity is built through repetition, not intention. Most people have good intentions. They intend to change. They intend to improve. They intend to become better. And intention makes them feel productive. But intention does not change identity. Repetition does. You are not what you want to be. You are not what you plan to become. You are what you repeatedly do. That truth is uncomfortable because it removes fantasy. It replaces hope with evidence, and evidence doesn't care about your intentions. This is where many people get stuck. They confuse desire with discipline. They confuse planning with progress. They confuse thinking with becoming. But the brain doesn't update identity through thoughts. It updates identity through behavior, repeated behavior. You don't decide who you are. You prove who you are. Over time, quietly, consistently. That's why identity shifts slowly and then suddenly. At first, repetition feels pointless. You don't feel different. You don't see results. But the mind is watching. Every repetition sends a signal. I am the kind of person who shows up. I am the kind of person who finishes. I am the kind of person who keeps promises. Or the opposite. I quit when it's hard. I delay when it's uncomfortable. I don't follow through. Those signals stack, and eventually they become belief. Belief becomes behavior. Behavior becomes identity. This is why affirmations alone don't work. You can say, I am disciplined all day long, but if your actions say otherwise, the mind rejects it. The mind only believes what it sees repeatedly. That's not negativity, that's integrity. Identity is earned, and it's earned in silence. No one sees the repetitions. No one hears the self-promises kept or broken. But your nervous system does. It remembers every follow-through, every avoidance, every excuse. That memory becomes self-image. Most people try to change identity first. They say, I want to be confident. I want to be focused. I want to be consistent. But identity is not the starting point. It's the result. Action comes first. Repetition comes second. Identity comes last. Always. That's why change feels fake at the beginning. You are acting out of character, and that's normal. Every strong identity began as repetition without belief. Confidence begins as behavior without confidence. Discipline begins as action without desire. Focus begins as effort without flow. If you wait to feel like the person you want to be, you will wait forever. Feeling follows action. Belief follows proof. This is why silence matters again. Identity doesn't form in announcements. It forms in accumulation. Small actions repeated until they no longer feel like effort. They feel like truth. Here's the shift you must make. Stop saying, I am trying to change. Start saying, I am practicing. Trying is vague. Practicing is specific. Trying gives you an escape. Practicing gives you structure. Practice has rules. Practice has repetition. Practice has commitment.
and practice builds identity. Here's your instruction. Choose one identity you want to build, not a goal, an identity. For example, I am someone who trains daily. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. Now choose one behavior that proves it, one action, one repetition, and perform it daily. Not until you believe it, until it becomes undeniable. Missed days slow identity formation. Kept days accelerate it. This is why consistency matters so much. Identity does not respond to intensity, it responds to reliability. The brain trusts patterns, not promises, and patterns are built in silence. This chapter matters because it destroys the illusion of change without action. You don't become someone new by thinking differently. You become someone new by acting differently, long enough. And silence is where that acting happens. Which brings us back to the core truth of this book. The person you become is built in silence, in the repetitions no one sees, in the habits you keep when belief is weak, in the actions that prove who you are becoming before you feel it. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together and define what it means to become dangerous in silence, because real power doesn't announce itself. It prepares quietly.
Chapter 10. Become dangerous in silence. Real power is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't seek permission. It prepares. Most people talk too much about what they're going to do. They explain their plans. They announce their goals. They seek validation before results. And in doing so, they leak energy. Talking feels like progress, but it's not. Execution is progress. And execution happens best in silence. When you stop talking, you start building. When you stop explaining, you start focusing. When you stop performing, you start becoming. This is what it means to become dangerous in silence. Not aggressive, not reckless, prepared. A dangerous person is not loud. They are capable. They don't rush. They don't react. They don't need attention. They have standards. They have structure. And they have control. And control is built privately. Most people want to look powerful. Very few want to be powerful. Because being powerful requires discipline without recognition. It requires effort without praise. It requires patience without reassurance. It requires silence. Dangerous people don't rise suddenly. They emerge quietly, after months of repetition, after years of consistency, after countless unseen decisions. That's why they surprise people. Not because they changed overnight, but because no one was paying attention while they were preparing. Here's the truth. If people can see your progress early, you're probably not deep enough yet. Depth takes time. Depth takes boredom. Depth takes silence. The shallow compete for attention. The deep compete with themselves. This is the final shift. Stop broadcasting your effort. Start protecting it. Your goals don't need approval. Your habits don't need witnesses. Your discipline doesn't need applause. It needs repetition. Silence removes pressure. Silence removes comparison. Silence removes distraction. In silence, you stop performing and start refining. That's where skill sharpens. That's where identity locks in. That's where confidence becomes stable, because it's no longer borrowed from others, it's built from evidence. Here's the hard reality. Most people will never know how much work you put in, and that's good, because needing recognition weakens you. Dangerous people don't need to be seen working. They need to be effective. They let results speak, and results are loud enough. Here's your instruction. For the next phase of your life, move quietly. Choose your habits carefully. Choose your standards deliberately. Choose your actions precisely. Then repeat them daily. No posting, no explaining, no complaining. Just execution. When doubt appears, return to structure. When boredom appears, return to repetition. When comfort tempts you, return to standards. This is how power compounds, not dramatically, relentlessly. Remember everything you've learned in this book. Silence builds discipline. Discipline builds habits. Habits build identity. Identity builds destiny. And every step happens quietly. This is why the loud fade and the quiet last. This is why attention seekers burn out and builders endure. This is why the strongest people don't announce their arrival. They arrive fully formed. Which brings us back to the core truth one final time. The person you become is built in silence, not in public wins, not in motivational moments, not in what you say you'll do, but in what you repeat when no one is watching. Now the responsibility is yours. You don't need more information. You need execution. So here is your final command. Pick one habit. Commit to it for 30 days. Protect it with silence. Let the work harden you before the world notices. And when the results arrive, they won't need an explanation. You will have become dangerous in silence. Everything you listen to comes down to one truth. Your life is not built in loud moments. It is built in silence. Not when people are watching, not when you feel motivated, but when you are alone with your choices. Every habit you keep in private is shaping your future. Every excuse you repeat is weakening you. Every disciplined action is strengthening you. You don't need a new identity. You need new repetitions. You don't need more confidence. You need more evidence. And evidence is built quietly. So here is your challenge. For the next 30 days, disappear from noise. No announcements, no validation, no explanations. Pick one habit. Do it daily, in silence. Let the work harden you. Let consistency change you. Let discipline speak for you. Because when the results arrive, they won't need permission. They won't need applause. They will speak for themselves. And by then, you will no longer be trying to change your life. You will have become someone new, built in silence.